Okay, so in this tutorial what I'm going to be teaching you is how to use the pen tool to create a path around an object that you want to cut out, and we'll add some layers in and yeah, basically just make it look nice for the intents of using on web. Okay, now, the first thing that we want to do in regards to an image is we want to check its image size. Okay, now when you open up an image from a camera, they're usually quite large and impractical to use on websites. So what we're going to do, first thing is we're going to go to image and we're going to go to image size. Now, what this image when I originally opened up was quite large. It was over 2000 pixels wide. So I've changed it to 600 by 900. So what I'll just show you how I did that. Okay, now if you make sure that the constrain proportions tick is activated, that will constrain the aspect ratio, and you just choose this area here, width, and type in 600 and click OK. That will make your image a much more usable size. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to select the pen tool, which is this tool just here. Now if you activate that tool, what we want to do is we want to create an outline around the red area of this using the pen tool. Now I'll show you how to quickly use the pen tool. First we need to create a node, which is the start of your path. Now when you click and hold, you can drag the next node, and as you can see, what it does is it creates a curve between the first node and the second node. So what we'll do is you just need to go around the outside. Now you can be as precise with this as you like. If you want to be extremely precise with it, it's not a problem. Okay, now when you get to a corner like that, you'll see that the node comes out like that. Okay, to the point there. Now that still is going to have a curvature on it. So if I choose over here, that's going to create a curve there. Now that's not what we want. So what you're going to have to do is close off this the curve on this particular node. Now you do that by holding the Alt key on a PC and clicking on that node, and it will remove the curve on the end of that node. It won't remove it on this side. So any curve that you have on this side will stay, this one will be removed. And then you can just continue to go around like so. Kill the curvature on that one. Okay, now, as I said, you can be as precise with this as you like, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to do a very rough one. Now, you want to make sure with the pen tool that you're staying on the inside edge of the object that you're cutting out, because you don't really want any bleed from the background. So be as precise as you can if you want to, but try and stay on the inside edge. Alright. Okay, so I'll just get this done really quickly. And we'll just go across to this one here. And down to there. Oh. Just put a bit of curve on there so we get into that shoulder. Alright, now, okay, so what I've now done is I've closed off my path. And if you go now to the paths panel over here, which should be there, if it's not there you can just click on window and then click on paths to bring it up, and that will bring up the paths panel. Okay, now that's a path I created from an earlier thing. Now what you'll be seeing is this now says work path. Okay, and that's the path that you've just created. Now if you select the pen tool and click anywhere else on this, that work path will be overwritten. That's basically just the default path. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that it doesn't get overwritten, you want to double click just in the middle there and just click OK as save the path as path 1. You can save it as whatever you like to call it if that's the way you want to roll, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to select the path that we've created. Now you can do that by right clicking on the path itself and choosing make selection, and that will give you the opportunity to put in feathers, and feather is basically just a gradient, so it makes the outside edge a bit smooth or whatever it is that you like to do. I don't use a feather. I'm not going to use a feather for this. Now as you can see, we've now selected that. Another way, I'll just show you another way to select that path quickly, is to hold Control and click on the picture, not on the actual thing there, just on the picture there, and that will bring up the marching ants saying that you've actually selected that area now. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to copy that area, the information within the bounds of those marching ants, onto a new layer. As you can see here, we've got it all on one layer. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to select the rectangular marquee tool, or press M. Okay, now making sure we position our cursor within the bounds of the marching ants, we're going to right click and choose Layer via Copy. Now as you can see, what that's done is it's created two layers. On one layer I have the background, and on the other layer I have the shirt without the background. Okay, now I usually just turn off the background and just leave it there, because you never know when you're going to have to go back to your original. So just save it, leave it where it is, it's fine, it doesn't matter. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer in between the pair of these two layers here, so that we can put a gradient and add a background onto it. Alright, now you do this by clicking on the layer that you would like the new layer to be inserted above, sorry. So if you want the new layer to be in between these two, you have to select the bottom layer and then click on this button here, which is just in the bottom right corner, create a new layer. Now what you'll see is you've just created a new layer, but it doesn't have anything on it, so it's basically just a blank layer. Alright, now what we need to do, we're going to be doing for this to add in the background, is we're going to be adding a gradient to the background, just to make it feel a little bit more subtle. So if you click on the gradient button just here, okay, now what we need to do is we need to configure the gradient that we're actually going to be putting on there, and you do that by clicking on this strip just here. This will show you what the active gradient is now. Okay, now because the shirt's red, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this gradient that I've got here, because it's light grey, and we're going to be making it gradient into a white. Okay, now if you had a light shirt, for instance, what you would do is you would click on that stopper there, choose color, and then you would go down and select a dark grey and choose that stopper there, go down and select a slightly lighter grey, and then you would have a very, very subtle gradient between the dark and the light, and I'll just show you what that would do. Now in order to create the gradient itself, what you need to do is have the gradient tool selected and drag from one point to another where you would like the gradient to sit. Okay, so I'm doing it from that bottom corner to the top right corner. Alright, now if you do it too small, that's basically the result that you get. So you want the gradient to stretch over the entirety of that thing. Now as you can see, it's put the dark color at the top and the light color at the bottom, which is not what I wanted. Now if that's happening, just check your setting here where it says reverse. Now I want to turn that off. If I do that again, there you go, it will actually make it the right color. However, because the shirt is dark, I'm actually going to be using a lighter gradient, so I'll make that a light grey into a white, and then we'll just push the gradient across, and there we go. It's quite subtle, but yeah, it's there. Alright, now what we need to do now is just put some quick effects on the shirt itself. So if you select the layer that the shirt is on and just double click it, it will bring up this panel here. Okay, now as you can see, you've got quite a few options that you can put on there. Have a play with them. There's quite a few things in there that are pretty cool, but yeah, it's really just trial and error, that sort of thing. So what we want to do is we want to add in a drop shadow. So if you click on the text where it says drop shadow, just be aware that if you just click on the little tick box, it will turn on the drop shadow, but you won't be able to edit the settings. So you need to click on the text itself. Okay, just move this box to the side and make sure that the preview tab is ticked so that you can actually see what you're doing. Now what we're going to do, you can see that drop shadow there that it's created underneath the shirt. It's a little bit harsh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the opacity of this down to about 35%. Going to amp the size of it up to about 20, around 20, 21, and just make the distance 10. Now the distance basically means how far away from the actual shirt the shadow is. The size basically says how much of a feather it's going to be putting on it, and how large the area is that it will be using. And the opacity basically pertains to how prominent it is, how much you can see it. So if you turn the opacity right down, obviously can't see it at all. Right up, looks really crap. So we're just going to put it down to about 35. That'll just give us a nice subtle drop shadow on that, and it just separates it from the background just a little bit, just enough to make it look nice. Ooh, what did I do there? All right, okay. Now, a couple of things we need to do just to clean this image up a bit. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to be doing is just here. I think I've actually made this image too small, so in the first step, nah, it's not too bad. I'll just zoom it in. Okay, now, what we're going to be doing is we need to get rid of the coat hanger here. You've got the coat hanger there, and we need to get rid of it so it looks like a complete shirt. Okay, so we're going to be using the clone stamp tool, which is this one just here. Okay, now many of these menus actually have multiple options. Now to bring out those options, what you need to do is just hold down the mouse on that and then just drag it out to the one that you want. Okay, so this is the clone stamp tool. Now the way that this works is it will basically take an area from somewhere else and clone it onto that area that I want it to happen for. Okay, now what I need to do to make sure, I'll just give you an example. If I select clone here and paint there, you can see it's made this area out here, which is not what I want at all. I don't want that red going out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my control key and select the picture of layer 1. Now what that will do is it creates marching ants around the border of the shirt that you're working with. Okay, now what that means is that if I use my clone stamp tool and paint out here, as you can see, nothing happens because it's working within the boundaries of those marching ants, and that's what we want. Okay, so all I'm going to do is select an area that I would like to clone. Just turn the size of this down a little bit, and then you just start painting and just basically try and make it look as good as you can. And I've just got this bit in here, so I'm just going to steal that little bit there, take a clone from here, and there we go. Okay, so just got rid of that coat hanger that was in the way, and that just looks a little bit cleaner. Alright, now to deselect the area that you've selected, you can hold Control and press D, or you can go to Select and choose the Deselect button there. Okay. Alright, and that pretty much is everything. Now, just at the end, you might want to just do a few tweaks to make the image look a little bit better and brighten it up, make it look a bit cleaner. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you how to just do a few quick little tweaks. Okay, the first one, alright, the first thing that we need to do is once again we need to select the shirt. Okay, so we have that area there. Now, what we're going to be doing is adding in layer adjustments. There's two ways to do this. You can either do that over here where you have all your adjustments. It might be slightly different on yours, but I think it would be in pretty much the same place. Okay, so we're just these are all the adjustments that you can put in. Once again, have a play around with them, see what they do. Alright, now the other way to do them is to go to Layer and choose New Adjustment Layer. And once again, this is just a list of all the things that are on the right hand side there. So what I'll do this first one through this menu. We're going to be adding in a levels layer and just click OK. Now the reason that we needed to have the shirt selected is, as you can see, when I created that new layer, it's created what's called a mask. So it's basically created a cutout of that shirt area over here on the levels layer. Now the reason you want to do that is because if you get rid of that mask, I'll just show you. If I now create levels and brighten that up, it also brightens up the background, which is not what we want. Okay, so I'm just going to, this is your history panel over here as well, just in case you ever need to go back a few steps. Okay, so I'm going to go back to before I deleted that layer mask, and now when I change the brightness, you can see it only affects the shirt. Alright. Okay, so just play around with it, make it look good. The next thing that we're going to do is on the adjustments panel, if you need to get back and see what the other adjustments you can put in are, you can just click this back button here, Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a curve, okay, which is going to basically, I'm just going to put a slight S curve on it. It's going to make the reds pop out a little bit more and add a bit of contrast into the darker areas, just to make it look nice, really. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I mean, as I said, just have a play around with any of the other effects or anything that you want to put in there. Yeah, it's always the best way to learn. Just jump in the deep end and give it a try. And that's about everything.